Baltimore's inner harbour, with its bustling waterfront and iconic skyline, holds a history far more complex than its picturesque present suggests. Beneath the veneer of modern urban renewal lies a past deeply entwined with the transatlantic slave trade. From its founding in 1729, Baltimore grew as a port city, its fortunes linked to maritime commerce. This commerce was built upon a brutal reality, the trafficking of enslaved Africans. Ships laden with tobacco, sugar, and cotton sailed from Baltimore's wharves, often carrying human cargo. The wealth that flowed into Baltimore, enriching merchants and financiers, carried the stain of suffering. Baltimore played an active role in the slave trade, shaping the mechanisms of human bondage. Understanding this history is essential for grappling with the legacies of racial and economic inequality that continue to mark the city today. To fully comprehend the city's present, we must delve into its past, uncovering the hidden histories beneath its cobblestone streets and historic buildings. Few figures embody the paradoxical legacy of Baltimore's rise as starkly as Alexander Brown. Arriving from Ireland in 1800, Brown established a mercantile house that would become synonymous with Baltimore's commercial success. Through shrewd investments and a keen understanding of transatlantic trade, Brown amassed a fortune, laying the foundation for a financial dynasty that continues to this day. Yet Brown's ascent was inextricably linked to the institution of slavery. Brown's firm, Alex. Brown & Sons, quickly became a major player in the financing of the cotton trade, the lifeblood of the antebellum South. Cotton, produced by the forced labor of enslaved Africans, was the engine of the American economy, and Brown's firm played a critical role in facilitating its production and distribution. Brown's ships carried cotton to textile mills in England and New England, returning with manufactured goods and often enslaved Africans to work the very plantations that fueled his wealth. While Brown himself was not a slave trader in the traditional sense, his business interests were deeply embedded in a system that relied upon human bondage. The profits generated by his firm, reinvested in banks, railroads and other ventures, helped to solidify the economic foundations of slavery. Brown's story, then, is not merely a tale of individual success, but a window into the systemic nature of slavery's reach, demonstrating how even those not directly involved in the buying and selling of human beings could nonetheless profit from this brutal system. Baltimore's role in the transatlantic slave trade extended far beyond its own shores. The city was a vital cog in a vast and complex network of trade that spanned 3 continents, known as the Atlantic Triangle. This triangular trade route connected Europe, Africa and the Americas in a web of commerce that fueled industrialization, colonialism and the enslavement of millions. Ships leaving Baltimore would first sail to Europe, laden with raw materials such as tobacco, cotton and timber. These goods, produced largely by enslaved labor, were exchanged for manufactured goods, textiles and other products. From Europe, the ships would then embark on the harrowing Middle Passage, the journey across the Atlantic to the west coast of Africa. There they would trade their European goods for enslaved Africans captured in raids or sold into slavery by local rulers. The final leg of the triangle involved transporting these captive Africans across the Atlantic, enduring unimaginable conditions, to be sold into slavery in the Americas. Baltimore's harbour, strategically located on the Chesapeake Bay, was ideally situated for this trade. Its deep waters could accommodate large ships, and its proximity to the tobacco and cotton plantations of the South made it a natural hub for the export of these cash crops. The city's merchants and shipbuilders became adept at meeting the demands of this lucrative but morally reprehensible trade, their expertise further entrenching Baltimore in the system of transatlantic slavery. Section 4. from sails to steam innovation and the acceleration of the slave trade. The 19th century witnessed a revolution in maritime technology, with the advent of steam power transforming seafaring and, in turn, the transatlantic slave trade. Baltimore, always at the forefront of innovation, embraced this new technology, its shipyards churning out steamships that would prove instrumental in intensifying the horrors of slavery. While steam power promised progress and efficiency, it also fueled the forced migration of millions of Africans, making the Middle Passage even more efficient and profitable for slave traders. Steam-powered vessels offered several advantages over their sail-powered counterparts. They were faster, more reliable, and less dependent on wind conditions, allowing for quicker crossings and more frequent voyages. This increased efficiency translated into higher profits for slave traders, who could transport more enslaved Africans in less time, maximizing their profits while minimizing their overhead. The adoption of steam power, while a technological marvel, had the perverse effect of streamlining the machinery of human suffering. Baltimore's shipbuilders and investors were quick to capitalize on this new technology. Firms like Alex, Brown & Sons invested heavily in steamship lines, recognizing the potential for increased profits from the cotton trade. These investments fueled the growth of Baltimore's economy, lining the pockets of its elite while simultaneously tightening the chains of bondage for countless Africans. The shift from sails to steam, then, underscores the complex interplay between technological advancement, economic incentives, and the perpetuation of slavery. Section 5. Financing Chains of Oppression, Baltimore's Banking Houses and the Slave Economy. While the horrors of the Middle Passage and the brutality of plantation life are well documented, the financial infrastructure that underpinned the slave trade is often overlooked. In Baltimore, as in other port cities, a sophisticated network of banks, insurance companies, and financial institutions emerged to facilitate and profit from the trade in human beings. These institutions, often operating under the guise of legitimate commerce, played a critical role in maintaining the slave economy. Banks in Baltimore provided loans to slave traders to finance the purchase of ships, supplies, and enslaved Africans. They also facilitated the transfer of funds between slave traders, plantation owners, and merchants, ensuring the smooth flow of capital within the slave economy. Insurance companies, meanwhile, offered policies that protected slave traders against financial losses, mitigating the risks associated with this inherently risky business. These policies, often referred to as slave insurance, treated enslaved Africans as mere commodities, their lives and well-being subordinated to the financial interests of their enslavers. The role of Baltimore's financial institutions in the slave trade extended beyond direct involvement in the buying and selling of human beings. Banks and insurance companies invested heavily in industries that relied upon slave labor, such as cotton production, sugar refining, and tobacco manufacturing. These investments, driven by the pursuit of profit, helped to sustain and expand the very system that perpetuated human bondage. Section 6. Beyond the Ledger: The Human Cost of Baltimore's Slave Trade Profits. The economic benefits reaped by Baltimore's merchants, financiers, and institutions came at an immeasurable human cost. Behind the cold calculations of profit lay the shattered lives of millions of Africans forcibly transported across the Atlantic. The wealth that flowed into Baltimore was built upon the backs of enslaved people, their labor transforming the city. The human cost can be measured in countless lives lost during the Middle Passage, victims of disease and despair. It can be seen in families torn apart, their bonds severed by the brutality of the slave trade. And it can be felt in the enduring legacy of trauma shaping the lives of African Americans today. The story of Baltimore's involvement in the slave trade is a stark reminder of the human cost of greed and indifference. It is a story that demands to be told, to honor the resilience of millions in the face of unimaginable hardship.